What I'm going to do today is I'm going to go through and show you some maintenance I'm going to do to my bike and also discuss some safety precautions you can take. With it being mid-August already, we are starting to lose daylight. As we start approaching the end of summer and fall, we've already lost a few minutes in the morning and about half an hour in the evening, which means with my commute back and forth to work, sunrise is getting a little bit later, so it's been staying pretty much a little bit darker than when I was beginning to ride during the summer, especially on the cloudy days or the days that we had all the haziness in the sky from the Canadian wildfires. Now, it has not affected my afternoon commute because it's still getting dark to about 7:30, but once the time starts changing and we start getting into September, October, that's going to be a little bit different. I still get out of work early enough that it shouldn't affect it too much, but if it was like last year and we still have the 60 to almost 80-degree days right up until December 1st, I'm still going to be riding my bike during October and November. So, which means after we turn the clocks back, there's a chance I might be commuting home from work right at dusk. So, I'm going to go over some safety changes that I'm making, and then we'll get into the main. Okay, it's a little bit hard to try to simulate this here in the basement, but this is kind of what the bike looks like from the side with all the electronics turned on and what reflectors I have on it. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn off all the electronics so you can see kind of what I'm going to be talking about in a bit. I don't have the best setup, but I'm trying to mimic this as much as possible. So without the lights on, this is what you would see from the side. Now, granted, when I showed you with the lights on, it was reflecting off the back wall, which you normally would not have in a normal riding environment. You would just have the lights in front and in back. But so this is pretty much all the reflection you would see from the side as if I was riding with my Hi-vis vest on. As you can see, most of the reflection is towards the back of the bike, but not to the front. So that means that somebody that's backing out of a driveway, you're not really in their line of sight. Unless they see your headlights, they're really not going to see you from the side, which is also why I got a white bike as opposed to a black one so that it does light up a little more. But what I'm going to do is I've got some reflectors that I'm going to go ahead and put on the bike to give it better visibility from the side. And also my helmet, I'm going to put some reflectors on it. I have not decided whether or not I'm going to add side lights to the bike. I may consider that or I may not, but I'm going to go ahead with the reflectors right now and see exactly how much more visibility that will give me. Okay, so the lighting down here is not the best, but we're going to try to make do. Now, I like to frequent smaller mom and pop shops over chain stores. Chain stores, if I have to, try avoid ordering online unless I just can't find it locally. So it took me 3 or 4 stores to find these reflective strips, especially in white or silver. These are more silver. So I don't want to like add anything to the bike that's going to be gaudy looking, so that's why I'm not going with red or yellow. But these here, if I hold it up to it, they kind of blend in with the bike nicely. So my plan is I'm going to go ahead right above where it says Velotric and below it on the down post, also the forks, and right down here at the crank, I'm going to go ahead and add these so that it gives more reflection. So let me go ahead and get these applied, but that's probably about where I'm going to put them. Let's see. This one right below the fender. I got those on. I like how they're subtle. They don't really change the looks of the bike. So I think I have everything covered as far as where I want the reflectors on the bike. It adds greatly to the visibility being seen, especially riding in dusk or at night. I did not add any reflectors over here. The reason being is this tube right here is more rounded, so it wouldn't stick as well, and this type of tape right here is more silver than white, so it didn't actually look good on the bike. But I think here, this bottom part, the part where the battery goes and the forks are going to be pretty much all I need as far as reflection. So I'm going to go ahead, get the bike down. I'm going to do the other side, get that all done, and then we're going to work on the helmet, and then I'll get into proper maintenance of your bike. All right, I brought down the brightness on the camera so that I could show you a little better, but that's going to add a lot more reflectiveness on the bike. I'm also including with my Hi-vis jacket, and also very bottom reflector is actually a reflector off another bike, but you can see what the back wheel is. That reflector is actually not as bright as the reflective tape and the Hi-vis, so I think that's going to really add to the visibility and being able to see me. So I don't know how well the other reflective tape is going to stay on the material of the pannier bags, but I went ahead and added some to the pannier bags as well so that you can see more and back also, because that one stripe that went up and down vertical, I feel was not bright enough and you couldn't see it, so we went ahead and added it into the bags. We'll see if it holds up when I actually fold the bag back up. I went ahead, did the down tube on this side. Had to go a little bit different because there is a maintenance screw right here and also one behind the crank, which I believe is to remove the bottom part of the battery terminal, and also the controller for the bike lives right here. Now the controller controls everything from the battery to your display to your rear motor, so I had to go a little bit different there. Went ahead, did this side of the pannier bag also. I'll be totally honest with you, this reflective tape right here, as you can see, it's been folded so many times and it's not as sticky as the reflectors here, so I don't know how well this is going to hold up and last on this material, but at least I have something here for now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead, bring this bike outside, and then I'm going to get out the manual mountain bike, bring that one outside, and I'm going to go through some basic maintenance tips for after rides for your e-bikes and your manual bikes. Alright, so I have both bikes out here. Got the newer e-bike that I just got through putting the reflectors on. I got the old mountain bike, which is a manual bike out here. This thing does not get ridden as much as it used to, especially now I got the e-bike, which is a real shame, but I can't pedal up hills anymore and I can't ride the distance anymore. Plus, with throwing my leg up over this bar right here, it's a little more difficult, but as I was bringing it out, I forgot how light this bike really is. I mean, this bike here is like really light compared to this thing. So I don't know the exact weight of the mountain bike, but the e-bike is 48 pounds, probably about 52 with the battery, and then that does not include my lock, my rain covers, or my bag. So we're probably sitting somewhere at about 55 pounds on this bike, probably somewhere around 20-25 pounds on this bike. This bike right here is aluminum, it's not carbon fiber, so it's one of the older style. But yeah, I got the two bikes out. I'm gonna go ahead, put the reflective stickers on the helmet, show you that, and then we're gonna come back out and do some basic maintenance on both of these bikes. I'm gonna go ahead and put the reflectors on the helmet. I'm not sure why helmets do not have reflective material on it. This is mainly a mountain biking helmet, so that might be the reason why, but even my regular helmet is not reflective. I don't know why they don't make bike helmets with reflective material on it for riding, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to take my new helmet and put some reflective material on it to keep me safe while riding also. Okay, so I got the reflective tape put on the helmet. Now, I know some of you are probably going to comment on the taping job that I did. However, with all the curves and bevels in this helmet, I had to go with several smaller pieces as opposed to one solid strip, and it wasn't really that easy, but this is going to serve the purpose. Now, to me, this is kind of what they should do with bicycle helmet, every single one of them. So I've got reflective material that goes all the way around the top pot, all the way on the mid pot, and also down both sides. You know, kids put stickers on their helmets all the time. If I'm going to put any stickers, I'd rather have it be reflective material to be safe. This is what they should do with bicycle helmets, is have reflective pinstriping on it. My helmet's going to be totally reflective now, and I'll be safe. Okay, so before we go outside and do the maintenance on our bikes, let's talk about bicycle tools. Now, I have two toolboxes full of sockets, hex wrenches, basically your Allen wrenches, open-end wrenches, closed box wrenches, and various other tools that I use for working on cars and around the house. That's going to get you through probably about 90% of the maintenance you need to do on your bikes. But now we're going to talk a little bit about some specialty tools that you need to have. One thing I do not have in my specialty tools that I just got is a socket for pulling the cranks on my bike and working with that. The reason being I did not buy that yet is because I'm still doing a little bit of research, because e-bike cranks are a little bit different than the cranks on your manual bikes, having to do especially with the way they interact with the controller and the electronics of the bike. So when it comes to doing like anything with the electronics and the cranks, and especially on the e-bike, since the e-bike has hydraulic brakes that take mineral oil and they're not the cable pull, that stuff I would probably refer to a bike shop until I learn more about how to do that myself. But my regular manual bike has cable brakes, regular cranks, so I can go ahead and work on that myself and adjusting the gears myself, the derailleurs and stuff. I've done it many times. But let's get into some of the specialty tools you should have if you're going to be maintaining your own bike. So in one of my videos, I showed you the little emergency hand pump for pumping up my tires if I get a flat while out riding. That I'm really not too happy with. It's basically good for an emergency, but I might look at getting one of the electric USB ones that I can work with that'll pump up your tires quicker, so I don't have to sit there and pump. For my home shop, basically what I got is I've got a floor stand pump with a tire gauge so I can make sure I'm maintaining proper tire pressure. This one here goes up to 160 psi, which is basically overkill for a bike, but this is a bike pump. I don't know if I want to try pumping up a car tire with this, but considering it goes to 160 psi, it will do a car tire. But I'm not sure I want to sit there and pump up a car tire. So I'm going to go through the other specialty tools that are in this bag. What I suggest is getting a proper toolbox to hold your specialty tools and sizes you need to maintain your bike. Get a proper toolbox to hold that, because you really don't want to be fishing through 2 full toolboxes like I have just to look for the tools to maintain your bikes. Now, if I ran a bike shop and my toolboxes were actually set out, that might be a different story, but I don't want to have to be lugging these toolboxes around because they weigh a lot. I don't want to have to be carrying them up and down stairs, going back and forth looking for stuff. So I suggest just a proper toolbox with all your bike tools in it, which is going to work on 99% of your bikes anyway, because when you think about it, other than the electronics, an e-bike is nothing more than a regular bike. Now, I'm talking about an e-bike with pedals. I'm not talking about these e-motorcycle things that these teenagers are riding with foot pegs. I'm just talking about your basic e-bikes with either a mid-drive motor or a hub motor that you can work on. So let's look at these specialty tools. So first, I got a cleaning brush for the chain and the cassette, which is basically your gears on your wheels. This is a proper cleaning brush as opposed to using a rag, which will work, but this will actually make sure that you get in there, get all the grime out of the gears, out of the chain. It's actually made with 3 sections here, so it'll fit. Your chain and your cassette will run right through that to really get it out. For more stubborn grime, I got this type of brush here, which actually has a hard plastic comb in the shape of your cassette, so you can really get in there. So I have 3 different types of chain lube here. Now, when we talk about lubricating our chains, we don't want to be using WD-40. WD-40 stands for water displacement. It's not really a good lubricant. It's more or less a cleaner. It will not provide the protection that you need. It's more or less to clean, get rust off, but it's not a good lubricant. The other thing is it's very sticky. The other type of oils you don't want to use is you don't want to use basically any chainsaw oil, car oil, like your 5W30s or anything you put in a car engine, any bar chain oil for chainsaws or anything like that. People in the bike forums on Facebook will say it's okay to use that. Now, technically, in a way, it is okay, but the problem with that is that stuff is very sticky. It's a wet lube. So what will end up happening is you will end up getting a lot of dust and grime from the roads and from the trails caking up on that, which will totally gum up your chain, your gears, your cassette, and which will really take away from the performance of your bike. WD-40 is probably the worst for that. So they make several different types of lube that's actually suggested. Another one is called Pro Gold. Now, with your wet lubes are good for if you live in a rainy or snowy climate. It will protect your chain much better. Just be aware that it's going to attract more grime. A lot of your bike shops suggest using like a dry bike lube. This one here is for sunny and rainy conditions. There are some that are for more of a wet lube. That's for dry, sunny, rainy, and snowy conditions that I just talked about. One of the more popular ones that you see on the bike forum and sold at bike shop is called Muck Off, which is an all-weather lube, which basically will take you from dry, damp, and wet conditions, but it is a wet lube also. A lot of your bike shops now are actually suggesting using a ceramic wax. So you might think of it as like candle wax, because that's what it'll look like on your chain once it dries. So basically with this, you got to shake it up because it does separate from the liquid and the wax material. With the wax, this will keep your chain, your gear, your cassette, and everything much cleaner. It will not attract the dirt. In fact, it actually repels it. The only bad part about it is you're going to have to clean your chain and reapply it probably about every 50 to 100 miles is the recommendation. Some people say apply it more regularly, a short amount of time of that. Some people say do it every 25 miles, and especially if you get caught out in rain. So that's the only bad thing about using a wax is you got to apply it more often than say some of your other lubes, but it is the cleanest out there. It'll keep your chain the cleanest. So let's get into some of these other tools. This tool right here is for your cassette lock ring. So on your back wheel where your gear cassette is, there is a lock ring on there that holds that to the actual rim. So you actually use one of these to untighten it. To go along with that, you're going to either need a pair of lock ring pliers or this tool right here. So basically what this does is this will wrap onto the cassette, and then what you do is you hold it to keep the cassette from spinning while you're undoing your lock. Here I have a valve core tool, which basically is a tool to remove the pin that's in your valve stem, you know, the little springy thing that pushes in so you can let air out or put air in and keeps air from coming out. This comes in very much handy, especially if you're going to put slime or flat out in your tubes, which basically slime and flat out. Flat out, I was told, is the better one over slime, but slime will kind of work just as well. What it does is if your tube gets punctured, as long as the hole is not super big, so basically a basic nail or a little slit from a stone or whatever, it will become self-sealing. It's not a perfect situation, but it will keep you from getting a flat if your tire gets punctured and your tube gets punctured. Basically all you have to do is put air back in it, continue on your ride. And then again, like I said, the caveat is as long as it's not like a huge hole, but something basically like a pinhole from stones, a small nail, glass, that's what that's for. These little plastic things are your tube bead breakers. They do come in metal and plastic. Prefer plastic so that you're not ruining your tire or scratching up your rims. Basically what they do is they go between your rim and your tube, and then you break the bead, go all the way around, take your tube off. Now, if you notice, a lot of my tools here are Park tools. Park tools and Pedros are the professional tools for working on bikes. That doesn't mean your other tools are bad, but these are the ones that the bike shops swear by, and they're more expensive. But you do got to really worry about cheap tools not lasting as long. So I went ahead with the Parks. I got these here. This is basically patches for my tubes, and I got another set with the patches, the scraper, and also more bead breakers. This tool right here is your mini chain tool. They come in different sizes, but basically what this is there's a pin right here, and you crank it, and this will pop out the rivet in your chain. So if you need to break your chain or remove links to put on a new chain or whatever, this is the tool that you take the rivet out of the links with. Got bike pliers here. Basically what this is for your master link. This will hold your chain together while you're putting your master link on. It will also snap your master link in place. I have a tool here also for your spoke. Now, your spokes sometimes will become loose and you'll have to tighten them up. It's very unheard of. I've never really had that happen. Some people will actually, if they break a spoke, they will go ahead and replace the individual spokes on their rims to try to make their rims last longer. Basically, I just got this in case of an emergency, in case I break a spoke and I have to remove it to keep my rim functioning properly until I can get back home, or if I notice that one of my spokes is actually loose. This tool right here is your chain tool. What this will tell you is the wear and tear on your chain. So basically what you do is you hook this into your chain, and then this goes down into the chain itself, And what they suggest is if this goes to either 0.75% or 0.5%, it's time to start looking at replacing your chain because your chain's getting worn out. So basically, you want to go ahead and test your chain regularly to see if it's getting worn out. I'm going to take this downstairs and I'm going to use this on the mountain bike to actually check the chain because that's the bike that I've had the longest, and we'll see how that actually looks. The other thing I suggest is I'm going to go outside and I'm going to show you the emergency toolkit that I carry with me in case something happens. So I'm just checking my notes real quick here to make sure I have everything covered in tools. One other tool is a chain tensioner tool. Basically, that's a tool that will pull your chain together as you're making adjustments and hold it in place. Truthfully, it's an okay tool, but I've talked to several mechanics at bike shops and bike shop owners, and they say just take a wire coat hanger and use that to hold your chain together rather than buying a special tool. That's what all the bike shops do. Very few will actually have a special tool for that. The other ones that tools you can get are if you have disc brakes on your bike, you might need a tool that's called a tuning fork for the disc brakes, and also tools for working on the calipers. I am not really versed in working on disc brakes for bikes. I've worked with the rim type that actually pinch on your rim. I forget exactly what they're called, that are cable driven. So I'm more familiar with working on those, and I can work with those. Anything disc brake related, until I get more education, I'm probably going to refer to a bike shop. And I suggest you do the same, because when you start getting into tuning forks and making sure the disc is actually centered between the pads and your wheels on straight and your discs are not bent, your rotor is not bent, that can really lead into a lot of work. So until I get more educated on that, any type of brake work on the e-bike, I'm going to refer to a bike shop. Anything that has the older style that actually pinch on your rims, I can do myself. The bottom bracket tool, that's for working on your crank. The link pliers, I'm probably going to get a better set that's more ergonomic than the flat type that I got for now. The rotor tuning fork I just talked about. So I talked about this tool right here for your cassette. They also make it in a plier form so that you can really grip it if you so choose, as opposed to using leverage. I may look at getting one of those in the future, and then cross the refills for plugging tubes until it's time to actually get a new tube. So that's basically all the tools you need. So let's head outside and talk about basic maintenance. I know I covered this before in another video, but I'm going to go through and cover it again because we're talking about maintenance of our bikes. And this is carrying an emergency toolkit for if you break down on your rides, because the last thing you want to happen is you get 10, 20, 30 miles away from your starting point and your bike breaks or something goes wrong, and what are you going to do? Truthfully, the most that would happen on a regular mountain bike, a regular manual bike. I have to keep saying mountain because my manual bike is a mountain trail riding bike, but even your regular manual road bikes. Truthfully, the most that would happen with that would probably be something with your chain or your tubes and you get a flat. E-bikes is a little bit different, but again, it's like a regular bike in a way. So truthfully, if anything can go wrong out on your rides, it's mostly going to be your chain, your tubes, or something in the electronics with your battery, controller, display, your function switches. But typically, anything electronic wise, you're going to start noticing problems before you actually get out on your destination, unless something just freakishly happens and it just breaks. So we're going to talk about your basic toolkit. So I was quite lucky that I bought a Velotric, because Velotric actually comes with a tool pouch. The only bad thing about it is the tools that are included in here did not include the tool to undo the nuts for your back wheel. They do sell a upgraded toolkit that includes it. Why they don't include it with the one that they supply with the bikes is beyond me. But I did have a bike shop. Now this one's a little bit beat up, but a bike shop did give this to me for free, and it actually fits the back wheel. So you want to go ahead and carry that. But the other tools I have in here that basically cover anything on your e-bike and your manual bike. You just got to make sure you have the ones that fit properly, because they could be different sizes. But Phillips screwdriver, various hex Allen wrenches, open and box end wrenches. This is a key for your disc brake. What this does is, if you have to take off a wheel, you want to put this in the actual caliper as if it was a rotor sitting there, because if you squeeze your brake, especially hydraulic ones, the caliper can squeeze too much and actually get stuck there, and then you won't be able to get your tire back on and get the rotor inside in between your disc brakes. So as soon as you pull the wheel, you want to go ahead and insert this key so that you don't actually get your caliper stuck. I should have a flathead screwdriver in here. I don't have one because truthfully nothing on my bike takes a flathead screw, neither on the mountain bike. I really don't need a flathead screwdriver. Some people say to carry a flathead screwdriver if you need to get the tire and tube off your rim. I don't suggest that. I've done it in the past when I was a kid and teenager and worked on my BMX style bike, my road bikes I used to have as a teenager, but I really don't suggest it. You can damage your tire, you can damage your tube, worse, you can damage your rim. So that's why we talked about these tools. So I'm going to go ahead, put my tire tool in there. I'm going to put my tire patches in there. Got my spoke wrench, which is going to go in there, but I'm going to leave that out for a second in case I need to tighten up any of my spoke. Chain pliers. I had to stop the video because somebody was playing music and I didn't want to get a copyright strike. So I'm going to go ahead and put my chain tools in there in case I need to work with the chain on the bike while I'm out riding. I'm also going to put my valve core tool in there in case something happens with my tube and I need to dump slime or flat out. Like basically if I was near a Walmart or a bike shop and I get a flat tire and I need to just dump some slime in there just to be able to get back home. Okay, so let's talk about cleaning. You can get shop rags to actually clean your bike with. The only problem with that is shop rags get grimy, so you're going to have to replace them often, or you're going to have to figure out a way to wash them and reuse them, but not in your regular washer. That's going to end up soiling your clothes for the grease and everything. Mostly bike shops use standard paper towel. The good thing about this is they're not linty as a regular rag. I'm going to show you a good cleaning when I get to my manual mountain bike, because that thing is just absolutely filthy right now. But on your e-bikes, the most critical parts you want to clean include your rotors, because that's where your brakes are. Getting inside the caliper and the pads might be a little difficult without removing the wheels. So the rotors and where it free spins, you want to make sure there's no dirt in there at all. Your cranks, you want to make sure those are good and clean on both sides. You want to make sure your motor is good and clean, and also your rear disc, as your rear rotor as well for your disc brakes. But the reason why you want to keep your motor clean, because any dust that gets in these parts will actually cause your motor to heat up more. It's not going to cool properly. So you want to make sure that is kept clean. Alright, so let's come over to this side of the bike. Okay, so with cleaning this side of your bike, where your chain, your cranks, your other pedal, your cassette that I was talking about, and your derailleur, this is another area to keep it clean, because this is how your bike is going to function, whether it's going to be efficient with your pedaling and such. Now, some people might say my derailleur looks a little strange the way it's out like that versus on this bike where it's straight up and down. Now on this bike here, I will tell you right now, this chain is very loose. You know, my derailleur probably should be sitting like that as well, but this bike is several years old. This chain is very loose, probably should be replaced, versus this chain, which is nice and tight. We're going to go ahead and start cleaning this. The first tool I'm going to grab to clean it is going to be paper towels, because what I want to do is this section right here gets very greasy and dirty from chain slap as you're like going over bumps. This part right here is more an aesthetic type thing versus functionality, but it does get greasy and grimy, especially when I lock up the bike. Sometimes the lock will fall and my chain will do this and hit that and put marks. Right now I'm putting fingerprints. I'm just going to clean that up for aesthetic looks. The rest of the bike is pretty much clean because, like I said, I did a thorough cleaning of this. I did a thorough check on this after my long ride. I'm going to go through and just clean this section off. Like I said, this is more for aesthetics than actual functionality, just to keep the bike nice looking. There we go. I mean, it's not going to stay clean because it's where the chain area is, but okay. So as I'm inspecting my chain, like I said, I just did a recent maintenance on this after the long trip, so just kind of looking at it now. I did start commuting back and forth to work again after my last trip, and I can see that I've got some grime there. Got a little bit of grime and stuff stuck to it. Noticing the chain is changing different colors because of the different type of lube that was on here, the wax versus the wet. It doesn't look like I need to get out the intense tool that has the comb, so I'm just going to go ahead and use this brush, and I'm going to insert it into the chain like this, and I'm just going to rotate this backwards. So this is why some people wear gloves, but I'm just going to wash my hands afterwards. So again, I'm just going to go through, do my chain. So now I'm going to use the other side of the brush and just kind of take off any excess dirt and grime. And go through and do that with my front crank as well. I do see dirt and stuff piling up in there. Like I said, you should probably inspect for dirt and grime after every ride. Make sure my rear cassette is all clean. I don't see any more debris. Now I'm just going to take a paper towel, get all the excess grease off of it. And I just caused my gears to shift, so we'll take care of that in a bit. But basically getting all the excess grease off. Getting all the excess grease off. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and lube it with the wax stuff. I don't see any more debris and dirt. It's not going to be 100% clean, but at least it's a lot cleaner than what it was. Alright, I want to try to bring you in a little bit closer here, but we got this tool here, which is basically the brush and the comb that I was telling you about. I'll show you better on the other bike, but basically what this is for is to really get in between your cassette. You know, get in there, get all that debris out if there was any. You know, you can use this to clean your teeth a little bit better. Some people say that you can use this to take the time and clean in between every single link. Now, I'd only suggest that if your chain was really, really dirty, but like I said, I did cleaning on this, I did lube on this, so it's not looking that bad. So now I'm going to go ahead and show you about lubing. So I got this shaken up on your chain where your links connect and the pin goes through. This is your roller. This is what you want to lubricate, every single one of those, and be very liberal about it. So yes, this is going to drip all over the place. I can wipe off my tires afterwards. Make sure I get every roller. So because I'm using wax, it is going to look like I melted a candle on my chain. But we want to make sure that it's good and lubed. And then you're going to let it dry. Now I'm going to rotate my chain slowly back to the next position. I oiled up my cassette earlier, so right now I'm mostly worried about the chain itself. And as you can see, this is also taking all the old grime off as well. A lot of grease coming off of here. This is highly important if your chain is silver, which is a different type of alloy, versus being different type of metal to use. I'm gonna go ahead and just give this a good spin. That's feeling nice and smooth. Very smooth. Let me show you how to use a chain tool real quick. So what you're going to do is you're going to hook one end on your roller like that, and you're going to come down to the next roller. Now, as you can see, at 0.75, this is not going down into the chain. Again, at 0.5, that's not going down into the chain. This tells me that my chain is still good and not worn out, in which it shouldn't be with only 110 miles on the bike. So let's move over to the mountain bike that's very dirty. And we're going to check the chain on this one, since this bike is a few years old. It's been ridden a lot. So I'm going to go 0.75 first. I'm going to hook it in and go down. It's not going through, which is good. Let's do 0.5, even smaller. Oh, that is on the verge of going through. Not quite there yet, but shortly I'm going to have to start thinking about replacing the chain on here, because that is almost falling through my roller. So basically, if it goes down in your roller like this, that's time to replace. So at 0.5, it's starting to go through. If it was to go through at 0.75, that would be a totally dangerous chain, and it's getting close. This chain is going to need to be replaced shortly. We're going to go through and take a look at my manual bike. As you can see, how dirty this is. Come over this side. This will really show you how dirty it is. See all that in there? All that grime. Look at that. That's what happens when you use wet lube and you go out on dusty trails, dirty trails, but that's why you do not use WD-40 as a lube. WD-40 is meant for cleaning and removing rust only. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to do a quick video on cleaning this up. I'm not going to go upstairs and get WD-40. This bike here, I need to put some air in the tires. I need to really clean it up. Probably do some adjustments on it before I ride it again. So I'm going to go through and make a different video on really adjusting things on your bike. Proper adjustments, tune-ups, and everything. E-bike is going to be quite similar as far as the basic components that your regular bike has, but first, let me demonstrate really cleaning this up. So the first thing I would do is I would take a wet or damp, not soaking wet shop rag and actually wipe down the entire bike because it is grimy. We're going to pretend like I just got back from a dirty, dusty ride, which is the last time I rode this bike. So I'm just going to go through, take it for tonight. I'm just going to go through, take a basic paper towel, just kind of get all a little bit of dirt off of it. Like I said, this is going to have to get a good cleaning and tune up. So one thing that would actually make this easier is if I had one of those bike stands that you actually put the bike on, either clamp it here or here, and then I could actually stand up and do this, but I don't have one. And I've been looking at them. There are several of them that I would probably purchase, but my concern is the cost of them. If I'm going to buy one, I want something heavy duty that would do the e-bike as well. Now, as I said before, picking up this bike is not a problem. This bike is very light. Picking up the e-bike and putting it on one of those stands is a little bit of a different story. So I would probably look at getting one of those stands that are hydraulic, that I can clamp it to the bike and actually lift the whole bike up via hydraulics. That's looking a lot better. Now I'm going to come through on this side, try getting you in a little bit closer. As you can see, I'm just wiping this off with a paper towel right now, and you can just see how much grime is on this bike. Still debating whether or not I want to sell this bike. I've been keeping it in good shape. I've been tuning it up, making sure everything's good on it. I really don't ride it anymore, and truthfully, the last time I tried selling it, nobody came back with a good price on it. They basically didn't want to offer me anything close to what this bike was worth or half price. So that's why I took it off the market for now, and I was riding it until I got the e-bike. Because the e-bike is a road bike, I'm not sure if I'm really going to part with this bike so I can ride this bike on trails still, but again, I can't pedal up hills, and the trails are not being maintained like they used to. A lot of them are overgrown, down trees. I mentioned it before. Try to get down in between here. This bike is probably, with how dirty it is right now, is probably one of the ones that I should have wore gloves on, but I'm just going to wash my hands afterwards. Alrighty. So we got all the grime off. I'm going to go through, do the chain like I did the last one. So because this chain is very dirty with grease buildup in that, I'm just going to use a paper towel first and just kind of get all the excess off. The only problem with this, doing it this way, is with the kickstand, I can't rotate my pedals good. This is why I would like to have one of those bike stands. The kickstand on the e-bike is back near the back wheel, so it makes it easier to rotate the chain. Alright, so I'm going to go through, take the paper towel, get all the excess grease off that I can. Now they do make professional chain cleaning tools that are motorized. This might be one of those times that you want to use that. See if I can get in there with my brush. And I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but the chain is really starting to come clean already. So like I said, this chain is actually getting close to being replaced. Probably what I would do is, considering how loose it is, this might be a time that you want to go ahead and remove a link or two if you can, to tighten it up, to make it shift better and everything, if you're not going to replace the chain totally, because this chain is very, very loose. It is stretched. So we got that cleaned up. Not 100% because it really needs a good scrubbing, but at least there's no more grime in there. If I can get you close enough. See how much dirt is in there? That is bad. That is all caked up. That needs a good cleaning as well. Take my comb tool and really get in between all the gears of the cassette. This is grimy. This comb tool is probably something I would stick in my emergency bag, just so that I can, you know, clean the cassettes off, clean the chain off. You know, if I'm riding, mountain biking, or somewhere on a dusty trail, something that I can use this to get in, get all the mud out. This is looking 200% better already. As old as this bike is, and how many times it's been ridden, might possibly consider replacing the cassette or the whole rim on this. It's starting to look a little bit worn down, but it's really not that bad. But I can tell by some of the teeth that it is starting to get some wear on it. Let me see if I can get in here and clean this as well, because this is like disgusting. Like I said, this would be a lot easier if I had a bike stand to raise this up and put it on so I'm not crouched down on the ground. But until I can find one that's rated for the weight of the e-bike and has somewhat of a lift, although I suppose I could get a regular one and just pick up the bike maybe a few inches and then sit in a chair. Still would make it easier, but something to thinking about, because the good ones are between $400 and $900, which is a pretty big investment. I guess it would depend on how much repairs I was planning on doing myself, and whether or not I was going to do like bike rodeos for the church, helping kids at church maintain their bike. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video on basic bike maintenance and basic safety. Remember to ride safe, obey all traffic and bike laws, keep your bikes maintained and clean, and most of all, have fun out there while you're out on your rides. We'll see you in the next video.